One agreement. That's all that stands between Canada and Donald Trump's tariffs. 1. And today, that agreement reached the exact date its fate gets decided. Let's rewind. 6 years ago today, CUSMA replaced NAFTA. And buried inside it was a small clause with a big job, Article 34.7. It said that on the 6th anniversary, the three countries would meet and each say, in writing, whether they wanted to lock the deal in until 2042. Canada said yes. Mexico said yes. 2 partners, ready to commit. The third one? Washington went quiet. On purpose. Because signing early means giving away leverage before the real fight even starts. And Trump doesn't give away leverage. Now here's the part one need you to hear clearly, because the headlines get it wrong. Skipping this deadline does not kill the deal. Read that again. CUSMA does not die today. It doesn't die this year. Under its own rules, if all three don't sign the full extension, it simply switches to yearly reviews, and stays in full force until 2036. Nobody gets kicked out unless they formally quit, and quitting takes 6 months' notice that nobody has filed. So all that day of reckoning drama? That's not what the paperwork says. The shield did not break today. What broke open today is a 10-year negotiation. And that's a very different story. But to understand why any of this matters, you have to understand the trap Canada built for itself. For decades, we bet our whole export economy on one buyer. 3 out of every $4 we earn abroad come from the United States. That's not a partnership. That's a leash. When one country holds 3/4 of your foreign income, every tariff, every mood swing, every "we don't need Canada" comment slams straight into your economy. CUSMA is the one thing keeping that leash from becoming a chokehold. It's why Canadian goods still cross at a rate near 10%, while the rest of the world pays far more. Lose it, and the weakness we spent decades building stops being a risk, and becomes our whole identity. Now here's the twist that flips this entire story. When Trump hit Canada and Mexico with a sudden 25% tariff back in 2025, guess who ran to the White House in a panic? Not Canadian exporters. American manufacturers. Their own companies. They told Washington flat out, "We can't build our products when the parts cost a quarter more. We'll have to lay off our own people." Let that sink in. The loudest voices warning against hitting Canada were Americans. So the question isn't, is Canada doomed? The real question is far more interesting. When the real bargaining starts, who's actually got the upper hand? I spent weeks inside the trade data to answer that. And what I found is not what the headlines say. Here's the number that got me. In 2025, our exports to the US fell by about $29 billion. That hurt, and I won't pretend it didn't. But over the exact same year, our exports to everywhere else rose by about $27.5 billion. Almost the entire whole America left behind got filled by other markets. Non-US exports jumped nearly 16%. That's not a country getting crushed. That's a country changing direction. And this is where Mark Carney's background shows. The man ran 2 central banks, Canada's through the financial crisis, England's through Brexit. He doesn't flinch at a tariff headline. He knows the truth about negotiating. Power isn't about who yells loudest. It's about who has options. And everything Ottawa's been doing quietly, new trade corridors, hard pushes into Britain, Europe and Asia, a plan to double non-US exports in a decade, it's all about one thing. Building options. Now let me be straight with you, because I won't sell you a fantasy. A big chunk of that new export growth wasn't factories booming. It was gold. Safe haven metals. Investors hiding money during chaos. Take the precious metals out, and the real diversification shrinks to about 14 billion. And the number of Canadian companies breaking into new markets only grew about 6%. So the honest verdict? The pivot has started. It's working at the top. But it's not finished. Anyone telling you Canada already replaced America is lying to you. But here's the chain of events both sides underestimate. Trump's tariffs were built to cause pain and force Canada to fold. What they actually did was hand every Canadian business a hard reason to go find a second customer. The pain became fuel. Before 2025, diversification was a slogan for ribbon-cutting ceremonies. After a year of tariff whiplash, it became survival, with real money behind it. So the pressure meant to control Canada may have quietly done the opposite. Every dollar we move off the American ledger is a dollar Washington can't threaten next time. Squeeze a dependency hard enough, and you teach it to stop being dependent. And on the American side? Ask the obvious question. If this was all about bringing jobs home, why are the loudest defenders of keeping this deal alive American farmers and American factories? Their own farm groups call it the gold standard. Their own plants warned against breaking it. When the people a policy is meant to help beg you to stop, the slogan and the strategy don't match. Now here's where this stops being just Canada versus America. Because other countries have been watching, and learning. Look at China. As America pulled away from Chinese goods, China became one of the few big exporters that actually diversified away from the US, faster than anyone expected. Look at Mexico, our own partner in this deal. 2 full rounds of talks with Washington already done, a third booked. Moving early. Moving fast. The lesson is simple, and other nations learned it the hard way: build your exits before the pressure peaks, not after it flattens you. Mexico got it. China got it. And for the first time in a long time, Canada gets it too. And that's what makes this moment different. In every past fight, softwood lumber, the old NAFTA battles, Canada played defense. We absorbed. We sued. We waited. And we came out just as dependent as before. This time is different. Canada even climbed to become the second largest source of US imports, passing China, even as our shipments south fell. The bond still runs deep. But now Ottawa is putting real money into changing the structure itself, not just symbolic gestures. That's the shift. And a country with somewhere else to sell is a country that can finally say no. But I owe you the other side, honestly. Trump's hardball wasn't all bluff. The tariffs did real damage. Factory towns, Oshawa, London, Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo, took real hits, and the new markets haven't reached them yet. The Bank of Canada expects exports to drag on our growth into 2026. Mexico came to the table faster than us, partly because pressure works. So yes, Trump's leverage is real. The only question is whether it lasts, or whether it just speeds up the independence it was trying to prevent. And here's the detail almost nobody caught. That yearly review clause. The Americans wrote it. Article 34.7 was designed by Washington as a pressure valve, a way to keep leverage on the table forever. So triggering annual reviews isn't the system breaking. It's the system working exactly as America built it. Which means the real fight was never about today. It was always about the 10 years today unlocks. So what does all this mean for you, watching in Toronto, or Calgary, or some small town in between? More than you think. Because it's headed straight for your wallet. Right now, compliant goods still cross near that 10% rate. As long as that holds, prices stay contained. But every yearly review is a new opening for Washington to push, on dairy, on farm access, on the rules deciding how much of a car must be built in North America. Tighten those rules, and the cost doesn't stay hidden. It shows up in the price of your next vehicle. Your home renovation. Your kitchen appliances. The food chain behind almost everything at the grocery store. That's how a boring trade clause becomes a line in your monthly budget. And with families already stretched on housing and food, even a small increase gets felt fast. So where does it go from here? 2 paths. The American play: drag the talks out, keep the yearly pressure on, wait for Canada to get tired and give up dairy and autos. The Canadian play, keep the shield, keep quietly rerouting trade to Europe and Asia, and negotiate from a base that's a little less dependent every quarter. Carney's whole bet is that patience beats panic, that Canada doesn't need a fast deal, it needs a good one. But here's the honest tension in that bet. Patience is easy to preach from Ottawa. It's brutal to live in a factory town where the order's already stopped. If the long game drags too long, pressure at home could force a quicker, worse deal than the plan ever wanted. That's the real risk, and it deserves to be said out loud. So here's my honest read. The data doesn't say Canada won. It says Canada has options it didn't have 5 years ago. And in a negotiation, options are everything. Washington still holds enormous weight, 3/4 of our trade doesn't move overnight, and anyone who says it does is lying. But the Canada that walked into July 1, 2026 is not the Canada that walked into Trump's first term. Back then, we negotiated because we had to. Now, more and more, we negotiate because we get to shape the terms. That's not a victory lap. But it's the strongest starting position we've had in a generation. And we earned it the hard way, one rerouted shipment, one new market at a time. The shield held today. The options are growing. And the next decade starts now, on our terms, more than ever before. I've given you the facts. Both sides. And my honest read. Now I want yours. If you were in Carney's chair, shield intact, options growing, but the giant next door still holding most of your trade, would you hold the line and play the long game? Or push for a fast deal and end the uncertainty? That's the one I can't stop thinking about. Tell me in the comments. And if this made the noise a little clearer, subscribe, I'll be tracking every round of this fight. See you in the next one.